is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Border War podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network. We are presented, as always, by 360 Vodka. My name is Jarrett Sutton. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jeff Hawkins. Jeff, year 3 on the podcast here. We're breaking it all down, Mizzou and Kansas. We'll hit Mizzou tonight. And, man, it's great to have college basketball back. Always good to see you. Welcome back. How are you?
Doing well. And as you mentioned, that great word, or 2 words, college basketball. I think everybody's a little bit excited, that now I can flip through the channels. I don't know who's playing, but I can at least find the game. That's always a plus to be able to do that. And obviously, we talk KU and MU, focusing on some MU today, right now. And no better place to be right now than sitting right here talking some basketball.
That's right. Me and you were both in the hoop circles. You're getting ready to start your season at Pembroke Hill. Really excited for you guys. Have had some great seasons under your direction, so I know you're chomping at the bit to get going. We with the Pelicans, we're just getting started as well, just right in the thick of the beginning of the season, the in-season tournament. So it's just awesome to just be in the basketball scene. I'm a football fan, but to your point, when games start coming.
Yeah,
that's what I'm so excited about. That's what gets you going. Is you wake up every morning checking box scores, and it's always great to have basketball back. So excited to talk Mizzou basketball tonight. Yeah. Year 2 of Dennis Gates begins, and right now 2-1 as we record this podcast, fresh off a victory against SIU Edwardsville. Mizzou getting ready to go to Minnesota tomorrow night and play in the Barn. Tough place to play. But an interesting, year ahead for Mizzou. They obviously will be missing Demoy Hodge, Kobe Brown. Kobe Brown, a first-round pick, was a great offseason for Mizzou in terms of seeing a first-round pick be called in Kobe Brown. DeAndre Golston playing overseas. Isaiah Mosley gets drafted to the G League. You're seeing a lot of guys that are playing overseas. That is very exciting for Coach Gates and his staff. It's Trey Gomillions playing overseas, another guy that had a good year last year, was a big part of building the culture at Mizzou. Ben Sternberg as well was a big part of the program as well. So it's a new group. Sean East is back. Nick Honor is back. Noah Carter is back. 3 big pieces. And then Aiden Shaw, maybe the most exciting player to talk about in terms of his potential. And a good freshman class that has come in, and we'll get to it. But first, I want to start with, though, Jeff, just Mizzou so far 2-1. I think fans are, they're excited about basketball, but this loss at home was a tough one. It actually kind of reminds me of the loss to Kansas last year in Mizzou Arena, where they just really got blitzed right out of the gate. And they used that as a great learning tool for the rest of the year. Yeah. They were a different team after that. It was really surprising. They just totally just changed how they played. They went and beat Illinois handedly in St. Louis. Then they started league play and really beat Kentucky, wire to wire. And Kentucky really wasn't even in the game. It just was a totally different team. I'm just curious how they respond after the Memphis loss. It's something Coach Gates has talked about. He changed how he did the non-conference schedules of the slate. It's way more competitive. They go to Minnesota, they go to Pitt, they have Wichita State at home. They already played Memphis. They obviously get Kansas at home. So they got some big time, Kansas road. They got a lot of big games in this non-conference slate. I think it's by design. And I think Coach Gates wanted to challenge his team earlier on in the year to see how they could respond and maybe start that progression of growing together early on. And early in the year, there's going to be some losses that, if you can get a big win, great, but there's going to be those moments that are learning moments. It's a part of a college basketball season. It's a marathon, not a sprint, and you kind of got to go through each game with the highs and lows and try to stay even keel. Mizzou 2-1, and I think, early on in the year, there's some positive signs. There are some things that probably need to be ironed out in terms of guys finding roles, but ultimately a decent start, good start. But I think fans would say, let's see how they respond in a big game. And I think that game's Thursday at Minnesota.
Yeah. When it comes to Mizzou and speaking on terms of Coach Gates, one of the things that I thought was so impressive last year was how he responded. You know, what he did when he responded to when things didn't go their way. Yep. And I mean, he continued to show that. So to me, he's already established that in his culture. We already know what to expect of that. To me, until he shows me otherwise, I expect them to change and do what they're looking to do. And again, this is a team that's up their schedule. So that's going to be some waves that they're, you know, trying to work some things out. You lost a lot, trying to work some guys in, figuring out their roles. I mean, he's not the only team that's going through this. And I know he clearly knows that, but for him to make those adjustments, I think he's going to do it, because that's all he's shown that he does is when he goes down, you better watch out. He's coming right back up. And, you know, that was obviously a loss that you don't want to do at home with Memphis. But again, he responds. He teaches his team to learn from that. I don't really think he looks at it as a loss. He looks at it more as we're learning. He knows that it's an L in the column, but they're learning at the end of the day. And those are always teams that I love to watch. And Coach Gates has still made me a believer. And for him to up the schedule, that goes to show you how much I think that he believes in not only his staff, but the players as well, too.
Yeah. And Mizzou actually got up to a good start in that Memphis game, had a 14-point lead in the first half. It really was the tale of two halves. And you know, I think the thing that, you know, was concerning a little bit was just Mizzou got hit and really didn't respond after that. They were 2 of 12 from 3 in the second half. Really didn't shoot the ball that well. They were 19% from the field, 5 of 26 from the field, and really just struggled to just find any sort of offense. I think some of that was they really couldn't play with much pace. There wasn't a lot of ball movement and player movement. They got a little stagnant. The one thing I love and appreciate about Coach Gates in terms of his system and his style and how he motivates is, you know, he said, look, you got to stay confident. Keep shooting the ball. I think there are things to look at in the film of maybe shot selection and how we can get easier shots and how we can help each other instead of trying to go so much off the dribble, where there wasn't a lot of separation and there wasn't a lot of creating in the paint, just not a lot of open looks. And when they did get an open look, then you're starting to think it because you've been in such a drought, and they really, you know, struggled in that game. I do want to look at it, though, high level in terms of some of these guys, newcomers that have come in. They got 11 newcomers to match with some of those returners I mentioned. But some of them that I think really jump out at me is one, Caleb Grill, who college basketball fans will know. He was at UNLV and Iowa State under TJ Otzelberger. Really good shooter, really good athlete, and a guy that plays relentlessly hard, has a motor that's constantly going, and one of the better rebounding guards, and has carried Mizzou on the glass, which I think it's going to be a talking point of, you know, last year Missouri was one of the worst teams on the glass in the SEC. That was a big part of some of their losses. He was just being blown out on the glass. But some of these guys they brought in, John Taji's a pretty good rebounder as well, who came over from Colorado State, good scorer, good shooter. But Caleb Grill, you know, he's committed to the glass. He is a very good shooter. He's been off to a little bit of a sluggish start. Now, he did hit a couple threes in the SIU Edwardsville game, and he's made his last 3 threes, if you count the last one against Memphis. So hopefully he's finding his shooting stroke. But I really think Caleb Grill could be a really good piece to this team and kind of fit the Demoy Hodge role. Not saying he's Demoy Hodge, but he's a shooter that has a quick release. He's got extended range. He does defend everywhere. Like, he can switch and sit down and guard. And he's experienced. He's older, knows who he is. So try to find his... And then a guy I'm really excited about, Kansas City kid, won a state championship at Piper High School, is Tamar Bates, the transfer from Indiana. 6'6", 6'5", 2 guard. Very good shooter, and definitely a player that at Indiana, I don't think could really play to his skill, to his strength in that system. Very heavily, around Trace Jackson Davis in terms of playing through the big, the tempo and the pace. He's going to be able to get up and down in Coach Gates' system, and I think it's something Coach Gates hinted at in his media availability a couple days ago of Tamar being aggressive because he's so athletic. And sometimes he can play a little bit back on his heels where he's a little too passive. because of the role he's been in, and he's in a totally different role now where he needs to just go and get, he only had 3 shot attempts against Memphis. And I don't think that can happen. I think he's too good of a player, and he's going to make spot shots. He can get to the rim. Another good defender, and a guy I think Mizzou fans should be very excited about. Those 2 guys in terms of, and we'll touch on some other transfers. John Tonji's back from injury. We're going to see Connor Vanover, who's serving a 3-game suspension. We'll see him on Thursday for the first time. He's the transfer from the Summit League at Oral Roberts. Was a great player there. So there's pieces there, and I still don't know what Mizzou's going to be yet until Connor steps on the floor. Because he's 7'3", shot blocker, protector. You're trying to figure out what you are as guys are coming back. John Tonji was hurt the first 3 games, but he did start the other night against SIU Edwardsville. I think he will start for much of this season. He's a guy that can shoot it and score it and brings experience. So there is a little bit of unknown, a little bit right now with this position.
Yeah. You said it best. That unknown is they're still trying to figure it out. It's early in the season, but again, I think a lot of Missouri fans and people that are very close to that program are just trying to, see what are we going to do with what we got. We don't want to live with excuses. And again, it's, that question is how are they going to respond? So I think, again, they're going to be great on that. Touching back, obviously, again, when you get 7-3 in the building, 7-2, 7-3 in the building, you better be ready to alter, change some shots. That's gonna change the whole flow of how they move too. So, right now they're putting pieces together right now. But again, you talked about 2 guys that I actually wanted to talk about, and again, that being Grill and Tamar Bates. And when we talk about Grill, you just talk about senior. You said experience. I love that word experience. When you can get experience on, they just bring a certain type of confidence, a certain type of presence with them. So to see how Caleb's gonna pan out through the season, obviously, like you talked about, him hitting his last 3 threes. I think something that's where a senior, when it comes to that senior, they know it's that mental part of the game, and I think that he's definitely going to be able to tap into that. So it's going to be able to see how fun. How it's going to be fun to see. How he's going to be able to intertwine with using his athleticism, his ability to guard and shoot and stretch the D when he can put that confidence and really start gelling together with that chemistry. And Tamar Bates, like you talked about, Coach Gates mentioned, like you said, he needs to be more aggressive. And the Tamar Bates that I've watched Tamar Bates since he was, a kid in the Kansas City area, and that's all he was. And obviously he had a different role at Indiana and played at a high level. So I think once he can kind of get to that, back to that, that mindset like he was at Piper, to where he was just so aggressive every possession. He controlled every possession. When he gets back to that mindset, this is the kid that I'm really looking to see how he can impact Missouri, and I'm really interested to see how he's really going to pan out in that Missouri Tiger uniform. But all in all, they're going to be fine. Their injuries don't got everybody back yet. You're still figuring some things out. New unit. I think they're going to be fine. If they do take some lumps, I think Coach Gates has been in that situation where he's going to take those lumps with his chin high. He's going to go back to the drawing board. He's been a proven winner on that, and they're going to make adjustments. He makes adjustments, and he does a really good job of it. So I just don't see why he would stop now.
Yep, I agree. I think you look back at last year, Mizzou was picked 11th in the SEC, and they finished top 4.
Yeah.
And then win 25 games and a tournament win. It's a great first year. Now you have a first round pick. You have a player in Demoy Hodge who made the Lakers roster on an E10 and undrafted, but really an impressive pre-draft, great shooter, great defender. Still shocked he was never on any SEC all defensive list, because he led the league in steals and broke the school record in a season. I say that meaning those two guys played key roles in last year's team. And when you needed big moments, you needed to stop the bleeding, you needed the guy to go too late, it was always Kobe or Demoy.
Yeah.
That to me is the biggest thing that Mizzou's got to figure out is who are their guys they can really lean on. And I think it's a great opportunity of there's open roles and they're going to try to be earned through the course. And there's going to probably be some more growing pains for this team, but it's about where the destination is going to be, and the path to get there. Guys are going to have to emerge. And, we've touched on Tamar and Caleb. It's been really impressive to see what Sean East is doing to start the year.
Yeah.
Who totally played a role off the bench last year. Had some really good moments. He was great for this team, but definitely played a role off the bench. He had some games where he scored the ball really well. He had 12 games where he led Mizzou in assists. And he's come out of the gates these first 3 games and been as efficient as you can be, shooting over 60% from the field. He's close to 75%, 60% from 3. He's averaging 18 a game. He's been the scoring efficient. And sometimes, it's Sean just dribbling, trying to make something happen. And that's got to continue to get better and better in terms of other guys stepping in roles. But, from a leadership perspective, and Coach Gates has touched on this, Sean East has kind of been that guy. So 3 games, he's the dude that's taking control of huddles. He's the dude in dead balls that are talking to every freshman. Anthony Robinson is a really talented freshman point guard that's going to be really good over time for Mizzou. He's still trying to find his way. Had a great game against SIU Edwardsville defensively, showed his passing, showed his athleticism. He is still learning, and he's always looking at Sean East for like that veteran leader, older classman, kind of taking him under his wing, telling him, what to do, kind of calming him down. He needs to be calmed down. Sean's been impressive so far. Noah Carter's had some good moments. Nick Honor is a terrific shooter. Coach Gates wants him to shoot the ball more. He's a 46% three-point shooter. Nick's not going to turn the ball over, but Nick Honor's kind of playing off the ball a little bit more, so you can try to just get him in his jump shot because he's such a good shooter. He is undersized, but I do think these 3 guys that are returners that were big pieces of this team and had great games last year. They're right now the 3 that are carrying this team. I think they would even say they're looking for some other guys to step up as well to really kind of be in those roles. I think we've touched on Caleb. We've touched on Tamar. The other guy I'm putting in this conversation is Aiden Shaw. Aiden, another Kansas City kid.
Yep.
Just a freak athlete. We know that. He's playing harder. I think he's embracing more of who he is and how he can impact a game. And that is be an absolute monster around the rim. Like, compete. Use your length. Use your explosiveness. Give a 3rd and 4th effort. If you block a shot at the rim, don't stop playing. Keep going. Grab some rebounds in traffic. Dunk balls. Go to the rim with force. And I think there's been some good moments. It's still a work in progress. It's still going to require some patience. But Aiden Shaw's got a ton of upside and ability. The skill is coming, but what I like more in what I've seen from Aiden so far is he's playing a lot harder, and he's definitely bought into the little things: rebounding, finishing, defending, and switching out and being everywhere defensively. And that's going to make Dennis Gates really happy.
Yeah. And, you talk about, just that small effort piece and, play around the rim, rebound, just do the little things. Like, and for him, you've heard this term before, like, you got to play like your hair's on fire.
Yeah.
Like, you got to, if your hair's on fire, you are sprinting as fast as you can to put some water on it, you're going to do whatever you can. And that's how you got to play on the court. And, that's all of a mindset. You got to give that effort. And I think Aiden Shaw's starting to figure that out because he's so athletic. Like you said, use your length. And not only just Aiden Shaw, they are lengthy this year. I would love to see those. You've seen them, those practices, man, when you get, these guys everybody going against each other in the practice. Missouri's length is so crazy this year. And you want to see a guy like Aiden Shaw, who is athletic and can do some crazy things around the rim, to just be able to be effective around the rim. And like you said, to be able to get that 3rd and 4th effort, those guys that can give that, I can't say you're not in the class of Dennis Rodman, but because that guy's a freak of nature. But Dennis Rodman gave a third or fourth effort every time. And you see what happened to him, and he was undersized. So guys that have length and size, if you just put in that fourth effort, and Aiden Shaw, like you said, is starting to figure that out. Good things are starting to happen.
Yeah, he's really just springy, but like just the ability to sit down and guard and switch 1 through 5 is such a weapon to have. But he's one of the bigger players on the team in terms of just size, but his just natural athleticism. He's going to have to be on that glass, and that's Gates is challenging with
everything
on, and he's added strength too. He's added about 10 pounds of muscle, so he definitely has gotten stronger. So it's something to really look forward to if you're a Mizzou fan. I did want to touch on the 3 freshmen too that are really interesting. Probably some long-term pieces, but I mentioned Anthony Robinson. He's playing the most minutes of the freshmen, about 14 minutes a game. And Coach Gates is not afraid to throw him in the game because he's fearless and comes in and not looking to just do anything on offense. He's mostly trying to guard and get deflections and be active in passing lanes. I do think over time he's going to be able to score it. And he is a point guard that is behind Nick Honor and Sean East that is just learning how to play. He can do some things with the ball out of pick and roll. He's long as for a point guard. He's about 6'3", 6'4". He's got a frame that looks like he could develop and fill in a little bit and get a little stronger over time. There's a lot to like about Anthony. Same with Trent Pierce and Jordan Butler. Trent Pierce is a 6'8", 6'9" wing who can really shoot it. Right now the game's too fast. Same with Jordan Butler. He's a 7-footer. Shots. His shot looks good from 3 and drags and pick and pops. But again, both these guys they're still pretty raw. They're still learning themselves. But I think Mizzou fans should be pretty excited about these guys. I just the bits and pieces I've seen of the 3 games so far. Memphis was a different beast. Memphis is a good team, really athletic, really long, strong, and definitely the freshmen, I think, got a taste of what college basketball is like in that game. It's a good learning experience for them. But these 3 guys, they possess a skill. And they do have like the size to play in the SEC against SEC size. They're good athletes. Everything you see from them in practice is really good. They're stacking good days on good days. That's all you want to hear when you're saying, hey, these guys are in good practices. That builds trust, that earns minutes. But then when you get into game, it's getting that experience of, one, adapting to the speed, and then taking your practice to games. Yeah, and that is the adjustment for these 3 right now. Like we've said before, Jeff, when we talk about freshmen, let's be patient and let's see where they are. Non-conference, and once league play starts, could they crack the rotation and be more, of guys that play 13 to 15 to 20 minutes a game?
You know what? I will tell you this. I think Coach Gates he's in a good situation right now. He has a good freshman class. I think right now he's still throwing a lot of guys out there trying to figure out the right chemistry for, what he's looking for that season. But he has some options. You got the big 3, Carter, East, and Honor. Again, which you talked about, and I got to touch back on that. These were role players last year. Now they're in a leader role. Yep. And to me, again, speaks on the culture and, how they're believing into what Coach Gates is preaching. Those guys were in the same role. And again, those 3, I guess I got to call them the big 3, the big 3, they definitely have to have guys that they can rely on. And, you got this talented freshman group right here that they're trying to figure some things out. Is it going to be those guys? Like, who's going to step up? Is it going to be, some transfer? Like, who's it going to be? And I think right now, Coach Gates is in a great situation right now because, again, he's shown that these players have bought in. Players are going to transfer from every college with the portal. We talked about that. That's going to always happen. But with Coach Gates, the guys that stick around and really buy in, they get the most out of this season. So it's going to be fun to see how he manages that talented freshman class that I told you I want to see some practice, man. I think watching some practices will be really fun to see, because you'll really get to see all the tools and that they really have, because players play at a different level, are different. You some things you just don't see in practice. So I'd love to see those practices and see how they develop under Coach Gates.
No question. I think Mizzou's got a lot of good tests ahead. I think there's so many teachable moments to take from the Memphis loss, and I think the biggest thing is, that they're going to have to be more competitive on the glass. That's always going to be a topic of conversation. They were minus 12 in the Memphis game. Yeah, you can't shoot 6 of 30 from 3. They also missed a lot of layups, and that's the tough part. Is they got some, the first half in particular, when they had a lead. There was no chance they could have taken that 14-point lead, and it could have been 20 plus. I mean, Memphis wasn't that great in the first half. They did not respond how you'd want them to in the second half. But there obviously are teachable moments there. The biggest thing, I think, for this Mizzou team philosophically, and this is something that they had to go through last year, is they are better when they are pushing tempo. If it's slow the ball down, or they're not initiating and not pushing tempo and pace. They only had an 8 assists to 12 turnovers in the Memphis game, and they didn't get hardly anything in transition. Nothing fast break wise. And you know that, Jeff, like last year, I mean, Des Moines had the green light at all times, and it was and I think they have that with Caleb Girl. I think it's adapting to that. If you want to play fast, everybody says they want to play fast, right? Until you need to play fast, and sometimes you say, look, we got guys that when they play fast, they're in a hurry that leads to turnovers. But some of these guys, they take care of the ball and they've been in the system long enough. Yeah, that to me is the next step of guys getting used to. We can't play like this for like just a game against Arkansas Pine Bluff. I mean, we have to bring it in and night out, and we have to set the tone of how this game's going to go. Memphis can't come back in a game just because we're missing layups and not making shots, and then all of a sudden we're not defending. Yeah, that's the maturity and growth that this team's going to have to go through. And like you said, earlier, they did this last year, and Coach Gates got them to respond. And there's buy-in. The culture there that's one thing you can just check the box on. Yeah, everybody bought in, pulling for each other. They got great communication between the players. The players are engaged on the bench. And look, Coach Gates did this a lot last year. He's going to change up his starting lineups. He's going to change up the starters in the second half. He's going to play 10, 11 guys. I mean, you're ready. You bet. But the biggest thing with Coach Gates is if you step on the floor, it's all about your efficiency. You bring value. You can't have empty minutes. With their personnel, and they're going to give every guy an opportunity. They're going to pick and choose. Right now, try to find those rotations and try to see who's going to embrace and accept those roles and be guys that they can count on. And guys they can trust, and you better bring it with your minutes. And I think that's a good place to be right now for this team. Yeah, it's a great place. Yep. We will talk more about Mizzou as we dive into this podcast moving on in the future. Big games ahead, though, for Mizzou. They go to Minnesota. They'll come back. They got 3 home games at Mizzou Arena before they head to Lawrence and play at KU. Wichita State at home also coming up in December. So some big tests ahead for Mizzou. We'll break it all down right here on the Border War podcast. But Jeff, great to have college basketball back, man. Yes. Good luck to your Raiders as you start your season tomorrow and get into games, and looking forward to the year ahead. You betcha, man. All right, Jeff. We'll talk to you. Appreciate you. College basketball.